Hi again then guys, and welcome to, of course, the final car review of the 3 vehicles added in GT Sport 1.56, and sometimes in these car reviews you just get to have the privilege of reviewing a vehicle which allows you to bask as a mere peasant in the glow of its radiant glory. A vehicle which we can hide in the shadow of on a hot summer's day, a vehicle which strikes fear into exotic owners from here to the other side of the world every time anyone thinks about the vehicle or even utters its name. Its racing prowess, its incredible performance, its overwhelming power, all for amazing affordable prices and everyday usability. And then sometimes we review Fiat 500s. Now on this occasion the Fiat 500 is not a bad car. It's a vehicle which of course would be fine in any other Gran Turismo game, and I would have absolutely no issue with it. In fact, I believe I already have reviewed this car in GT6, and I don't recall saying anything particularly scathing about it, other than the things which I'll probably repeat again now. The primary one being, why do we need it? Well, the answer is, we don't. I don't care who you are, I don't care what your preference in vehicles is. I don't even care if you own one in real life. We don't need this car in the game, because the simple fact is, we already have the better one. The Abarth 500 is a superior car. So in a racing game, especially one which is all about the FIA stuff, which, you're not going to choose the lesser of two cars to enter, are you? Not if you've got two sides of a brain at least. This one then doesn't really make sense in the lineup of the game. However, in a similar way to how we have the Corolla Levin and the Truno both in the same game, it doesn't necessarily mean that the car doesn't have any use. For me, for instance, you don't need both of those, and although of course a lot of people disagree, JDM fans, Japanese fans, import fans, whatever, I would disagree because I'm not a super fan of the car, and objectively speaking, one of them doesn't really bring anything at all to the table that the other doesn't already. In the case of this one, that's not exactly the same, because the cars are different. The issue remains, though, that the car doesn't do anything that the 500 can't do from Abarth already, because it's not that the car is worse, it's that the categories in the game only go down so far. An N100 is the lowest level there is, so having this version against the Abarth doesn't really matter that much. They both have the same amount of power when tuned to the peak of the class anyway. Now of course, if you take it higher, immediately the Abarth has an advantage because it's already more powerful to begin with, it's already a faster car, and even though I haven't compared them around a track, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if it turns out to also be quicker. And when I say quicker, I am of course referring to tuning them both up to the same class, because obviously in their stock form, the Abarth is quicker. However, when it comes to this one, what do you actually get? Because I'm sure that more than a few of you haven't even bothered to look at this car in the dealership, let alone buy it, especially if you already have the Abarth. Well, what you get is a price tag of 23 grand, so it's the cheapest of the three. I mean, surprise, surprise. The engine is a 1.2 litre, as the name of the car suggests. It's got a modest 65 horsepower, actually a more impressive 75 pound-feet of torque, so it's a thumpy little motor, not too surprising for a modern engine, and it weighs barely over a metric tonne, 1,010 kilos, which I actually find to be maybe heavier than I would have thought it would be. Maybe 950 kilos is what I would have assumed for a car like this, and if I recall correctly, I believe the mid to late 2000s Panda, the one which my favourite Fiat is based on, the 100 HP, I'm pretty sure that car weighs something like 950 or 970 kilos, so it seems weird to me that this, being so similar to the Panda in size and layout, weighs that much more. However, in the case of a vehicle like this, of course it's not really the stock spec that matters that much, because barely anyone is going to be driving it stock. Even people who drive it in a slow form will probably go to the other extreme and make it even less powerful, just to really rub the salt into the wound and have total fun with it. Maybe high suspension, soft settings so that you can roll it through corners. You can have fun like that with many cars that are otherwise fairly useless. Now of course, AI is very different to real people, so don't expect to be joining lobbies and dominating everything with this car necessarily, because of course there's a little thing known as the K car, and K cars in N100 are a force to be reckoned with, because it's not just about power. They are so small and so light as well, and that is a huge advantage when you're talking cornering speeds. It's one of the primary reasons why the classic Mini is a force to be reckoned with. Despite the fact it has no power advantage over other cars in N100, it's so light and so small that it's a beast, especially on a track like the Nürburgring, where you need really high average speeds through all of the corners. In the case of a car like this though, unfortunately it suffers from the same problem that the modern Mini does, and that is that it ain't Mini anymore. It's a lot bigger than the old one. Now of course the original Fiat 500 makes an original Mini look big by comparison, so this one isn't as large as a modern Mini became, but still you can definitely feel that kind of soft, rounded, wallowy nature that a vehicle like this has, and ultimately the primary issue that I have with this car has nothing to do with what it is, nothing to do with the fact that it's a Fiat, and certainly nothing to do with its performance. In fact, in its own little way, it's pretty fun. It's thumpy, it's more of a sleeper than the Abarth is, etc. You can sing the praises of a car like this all day long, and in real life I could sell this car to anyone because it's a legitimately great little car, and here in the UK the used prices are really high because people love them. However, the issue with this car being in the game is not to do with any of that. It's because it doesn't belong in the game. It's not the kind of Gran Turismo game where this car would ever be relevant, and I touched on that in the review for the pack as a whole, because this is, of course, an FIA game. Sport is in the name. Sport mode is where a lot of the people who take the game the most seriously tend to do a lot of their racing, rather than, just for fun lobbies. And although you do see crossover, a lot of those who consider themselves more professional drivers tend to focus on sport mode. This car has no relevance to sport mode. Even in an N100 class, just go for the Abarth, just go for something else entirely. So, in a normal Gran Turismo title, this will be fine. It'd be a great little addition to Fiat, very obvious choice to go for, and it does give a nice contrast to what makes the Abarth so cool. It's a cool little hot hatch. Specifically in GT Sport, however, it's easily one of the most pointless cars we've ever had, and I would actually include in that argument many of the Group X cars, which are next to useless under most circumstances. This is easily more useless than many of those, because at least a lot of those Group X cars are at least tangentially motorsport related. Whereas this, on the other hand, it brings nothing fresh to the game, nothing new to the table, it certainly is not a ground up creation, and as well as the vehicle having no realistic place in this game, no justification for being here, it also highlights an issue which I raised, I believe, in the update mini rant that I did, and that is that it's just a poor allocation of time and resources to when Kaz has already himself said it takes a quoted 6 months to put a car into the game, even if it was an existing premium, we can presume, I guess he hasn't told us any different. Why then would you assign that kind of personnel and time and money into bringing a Fiat into a game that 99% of people will never use a Fiat in, even if it is the Abarth? It just makes no sense from a gaming point of view, from a logic point of view, and of course I'm all for having crazy little cars in the game, but that's kind of the point. That's an old-fashioned Gran Turismo approach. Whereas this, on the other hand, is self-proclaimed, and so would proclaim many of its fans, not a traditional Gran Turismo game. Well then pick a side. You can't have your cake and eat it. Either it's a sport-focused FIA game with no place for cars like this, or it isn't. So which is it? Because this car, and some of the others like it, contradict the whole point of the game. Overall though, that's it for my thoughts on the Fiat 500, certainly a mighty beast, and of course tell me your thoughts down below if you've even bothered to buy it. So of course, stick around next week on the channel, starting on Monday most likely. I'll be tuning the cars as well, probably including this one, but as I said, tell me what you think about the car down below, and stick around on the channel for more news, leaks, confirmations, predictions, tunes, all that kind of good stuff. And for now, as always, thanks for watching.